Hello, so in this iteration, we want to add the ability to see what is the actual value of the slider, and we have to decide what format we want to use. I'm going to use the 0 to 255, but if you want to use the 0 to 1, you just display the number as is. I need to move the view a little bit below so that it's separated from the alpha slider as well. So first I need to go to the storyboard. Here is my view, so I take the view down a little bit and I'm using the arrow here to move it. Then I need to add labels to display the actual numbers. So from the object library, select the labels. We've done that in the previous project. So I need 4 labels. So I'm going to choose here to do 4 labels. So I'll add a label here, and I'm adding it right before the slider. Maybe I can move it up a little bit more. Keep an area here on the top because we're gonna need it for navigation in the next iteration, so don't go all the way up, or if you do, it's gonna change afterwards. So here's the label, and I don't want it to be called label. I'm gonna put a number in there, so perhaps that text label I can delete it, so there's it's empty text in the beginning. For the color, I'm going to use another visual, so I'm gonna set the colors to be the same color as what the number will be representing. So if I'm talking about a red label, I'm gonna use the red color. And I'll leave that the size and the font to be the same. I only need 1 line in that label. Then I can add another one. So I'll add another label here. And see the grid lines show you the alignment, so I can align in different directions and with the other label. So this will be my green label, so I don't need the text label. I want to change the color to be green and leave the number and the font size and type the same. Then add the blue label. So here is the blue label. So nothing here, and blue, and leave the rest to be the same. Finally, the alpha label. And this will be black, so the default color is the same, the black, and the font size and type is the same. So here are my 4 labels. Then my next step is I need to connect those labels to the controller because I'm going to put the data in there from the controller. So bring in the assistant editor, and I have already the alpha selected, so control drag from the alpha, and this will be label alpha. So I'm connecting an outlet. The reason I'm connecting an outlet because I want to change the text from the controller. I want to select the blue, so hover over until you find the blue. So control drag, and this will be label blue. Then go to the green, so connect, this will be label green. And finally the red, so connect, and this is label red. So I have 4 new outlets, 1 for each of the 4 labels, and I have access to all of them. So when do I want to set the values of the colors? I already have the sliders here, so I want to do that in the change color. A side point here, one of the changes you can make is you notice when the app opens, the color is not displayed in the view because we're not initializing it. You can, in the view.load, retrieve the values, the initial values of the slider, which I already set to 0.5, 0.5, 0.51, and then, or basically call change color. So you can, from the view.load, you can say change color, and once you change color, the values will be reflected. So it's something I can do here in the view.load. And this is not something I planned, but it's something I realized that every time you open the app, the color is not there. and realized all what I need to do is to call change color when the view load as well. So display color based on initial values, and all I need to do is just say change color. So to see that in action, if it works well, because I didn't try this before, once the app loads, you can see the color based on the initial value of the slider, the different slider, which is 0.5 for all and 1 for the alpha, and that's the color that you get. All right, so now we need to add the text. So I'm going to add a step number 4 to the change color function, and let me go back to the regular editor so there's enough room. And I'll bring that up a little bit more. So what I need to do first is to convert the value, the color values to text. So I can start by say, so if I say let, because I have to, when I make the conversion, I'll put it in a memory identifier. So I say let red string, the string as the red equal. So can I get the red value to tell me a string, or can I convert from a string to red value? We can go to the API documentation and see what we can do. So we can say float. And is there a float here type? Not really much. There's a float value that gives you back a string. I don't know what that is. It's something in a class called NSString, and the float, but this gives you a float. That's if you have a string and you want float from the string, that's what you can do this for. I want to look at the string itself, string type. Creating string objects from formatted string. So there is, to create a string objects include functions to create string objects from formatted strings. And there's something called the string format specifiers. And this has a lot of details that may be even too much for us. But the string specifiers are important for us to see. Where did they go? String format specifiers. The string format specifiers give you different formats, special meanings for some characters. So for instance, a %f form character is represent a floating point number, a %d represent an integer, u and %at represent a string, and so on and so forth. And different details here that you can look at. There is some information about strings here, how they are handled and manipulated, and types and so on, and this might be too much for you. If I go to the string class type, there is a function called localizedStringWithFormat. This function, localizedStringWithFormat, this method in that string type gives you back a string, and but receives the format you want the string and the arguments, or where you want to convert the string from. So let's see how we can use that function. First, the format. The format is a string representing how you want the value you have here to be formatted. It will become clear once we use an example. So I'll add a string here by using double quotation, and I'm going to use a format specifier, and I will say this is f for a floating point number. So this is saying I want to create a string in the format, in a string made out of a floating point number that you retrieve from this argument. So every % references a type that you will see in the argument. So let's say red value. So red value is a float. So I want to take that float and make a string. And in this case, the string I want to make, which is here, contains nothing but that float value. Let's test this first. So I'll go to step 5, assign the string to the text property of the label. So I'll say label red dot text equal red string. And let's run this and see how it works. So here is the value 0.5, and as you can see, it shows the floating point number as the text property of the label. And I colored the label in red, so it shows in red. Notice though that there are 3 dots in here, meaning that there is more to the number that is unable to be included due to the width of the string itself. This is due to the fact that since this is a floating point number, it will display up to 8 or even more decimal points. So I want to limit the number of decimal points. So I come here before the F. I say, I don't want to display the entire floating point or decimal number. I want to display whatever non-decimal value. Then I want to display the dot. Then I want to display 2 digits at most to the right of the decimal point. So let's see what this will do. So now I have 0.50, and if I move the floating point number, you can see it is changing, but I can only see 2 decimal points, 2 decimal locations to the right of the decimal points. So that shows me the number between 0 and 1. What if I want to show it as a 255? So I can come here and say, multiply that decimal with 255. But in that case, I don't really want to show anything to the right of the decimal point, so I say 0. I don't want to see any decimal points. So run. So here is the number. So here is your 0, and here is your 255. And in between, you see the actual value. So you can decide which format you want to display the number as. Now that you see how we can do this, let's go ahead and apply it to the rest of the values. So I will need to do the same for each of them. So let blue string equal string dot localize the string with format. I want a string with no decimals from a floating point number that is coming from the blue value multiplied by 255. And then I want to set the label blue dot text equal blue string. Then add one for green that localize the string with format. This is a very powerful function because in essence we can convert anything to a string, whether it's a number or even another string. If you use %at, it will allow you to put a string value in there. So we'll just say here this is the green value multiplied by 255, and here I'll say label green dot text equal green string, and then finally the alpha. So let alpha string equal string dot localize string with format %0f, and I'm gonna get that f from the alpha value multiplied by 255, and then here I'll say label alpha dot text equal alpha string. So then I run. So initially, because I added this setting the color based on initial values, here are the initial values. I can change any of them, get the full white color, get the full black color, or get any color in between, and the user can see the actual color selection that I made an actual value. You can then take those values and use them anywhere else that you want.